Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Our theme's the joy of living. How dare a bunch of drunks choose such a theme? Because we've come out of the darkness and into the light, and out of death and into life. The 12 steps of the 12 traditions on page 109 says, the joy of living is the theme of AA's 12th step. And the big book enlarges on this idea. On page 132, it says, if newcomers could see no joy or fun in our existence, they wouldn't want it. We absolutely insist on enjoying life. We are sure that God wants us to be happy and joyous and free. Now, when I think of joy and fun in AA, I think first of our next speaker, who comes to us from Washington, D.C., USA, Sandy B. Thank
you, Bob.
They're all yours.
All right.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Beach, and I'm an alcoholic. How you all doing out there? Boy, I see those people up there. You really go to any length. I'll tell you, I wish my mother could see me. I know if she were here, she would say, you ought to get down from here before you make a fool out of yourself. She's a very fundamental person, always been honest with me, and seriously, I wish she could be here. But she had an accident recently and an operation, and she's recovering at home. And I know she's very grateful to you all for a gift that you've given to her, and that's me. Because I'm able to do things now that I wasn't able to do before. I'm able to tell her that I love her. I don't think she ever really knew that, because I was incapable of telling her that. And my father's grateful also, and it's just nice that this change has come about and this magnificence of Alcoholics Anonymous was able to take place. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about my mother. She's comes from an Irish Catholic family of 9 brothers and sisters with very strong opinions on everything in the world. And my father comes from an English Protestant family of 1 brother and 1 sister, moderation there, with a Yankee background and very strong opinions on everything in the world. And last November, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. And it was a magnificent event, and the whole family got there, and I was really grateful that I got a job now, and I was able to send some money around to my 6 kids that are scattered all over the United States, and they could travel back and be part of this huge family that assembled for this singular event. And I was asked to comment and make some remarks during this ceremony as to how this marriage could have lasted. And the only reason that I could come up with was that they had made a firm pact never to surrender. And the interesting aftermath of that particular reunion was the reaction and feedback that I got from my kids, who had never seen all of these relatives and had never seen all of the people who showed up there. And they found out, as a result of 3 or 4 hours of being in the midst of their family, who they were. They had a new feeling about themselves. And each one of them said to me, you know, that was really exciting to see where we came from and to see all the people that we're related to and what a big thing we're part of. And you know, I kind of have that feeling tonight, and I've had that ever since I've been in AA. I no longer am just me, that marvelous identity of an alcoholic who gets up in the morning and it's just me, me, me. Oh, it's too hot for me. Where's the bathroom? It's my turn in the bathroom. All of this self-centered, uptight feeling is to come in here and suddenly be just a part of something. And I like that. And I relate it to their feelings and their enjoyment of that particular event. I remember in 1949 when I went off to college, it was about 4 miles away. And we lived in Woodbridge, and I went all the way down to New Haven, Connecticut. And I was there a couple of weeks, and my mother sent me a letter. And she wrote, "Dear son, I'm writing this letter very slowly because I know you don't read fast." And she still writes letters like that. The most recent one I got was a question that they both had, which was, "Do you have any idea what you plan to be when you grow up?" And I've been at a loss for words to that particular question for a number of years, and I have an answer now. And maybe some of you whose parents still ask you that, even though you're 57, you might want to use this answer. My answer is, what I'd really want to be is a grown-up. I've decided that that is the goal in life. To be a real, genuine grown-up. You know what I mean? Like grown-ups, you've seen them out there. They walk around and they don't get all upset and they just keep going around. It's amazing. We got a couple in here. We got one in our group, as a matter of fact, back home. And I sit around and study that guy and I go, how the hell do you get to be a grown-up? You know, must have been born in a different place than I was. But that's my target. That's one of my goals. My secret goals in AA is to become a grown-up. Also, with getting that letter in 1949, I had my first drink of alcohol. And I only want to talk briefly about that first drink because I think it condensed my whole illness of alcoholism all in that one night. I was at a social function with 30 or 40 people at the university, and I always felt the way I did at these functions, and that was everybody was relating to each other, but I didn't belong. And I would go into the room where this little event was going on, and I would stand over against the wall and watch everybody relate. And I would say, wonder when they're going to give me the high sign to come on in and talk with them. And they weren't giving me the high sign. They were looking over going, what's the matter with that guy over against the wall over there? And I had the feeling that there was a little hostility in their eyes. And there were little groups of people pointing over there. So after a while, I did anything that a person in that situation would do. I left. And I have found that leaving is one of the solutions to all problems. I don't know if you've noticed that. In psychology books, they have an AA for neurotics, and it's when the anxiety goes up, you avoid it. And you just walk away, and the anxiety goes down. But a lot of situations you can't get out of. And on this particular evening, at the urging of my roommates and many people were that I had come to know, it was suggested, why don't I try a drink, that I would feel better, that life would indeed take on a new meaning for me. And I'm here to report tonight that the drink that I had no effect on me. I can recall nothing. I thought it was broken. I had a feeling they had given me whiskey, that it wasn't aged enough or something. I stood there waiting for the feeling that people had told me about. But you should have seen what the drink did to all the people in the room. This was the strangest phenomenon. All of these mean people started smiling. A couple of them said, hey, come over here. We want you to tell us a joke. I said, damn, this stuff is amazing. I drink and the world gets better. I drink and you become better people. I drink and there's brotherly love. I loved it. I felt like Alice in Wonderland. I had just walked through the looking glass, which I was to do in later years. And those things fight back. But I think I was an alcoholic right there. You talk about crossing the line. I think I drank socially for 15, 20 minutes, right over the line, and you know, into the... into that give me liberty or give me death type of a feeling. I just needed it. It was the greatest thing I had discovered, and it became my shortcut to growing up. Why go through all the pain of growing up when you can drink vodka? I mean, why bother? Why suffer rejection and fear and anxiety? All I have to do is drink. Where the hell? I didn't understand why everybody wasn't doing this. What's the matter with you people? Why are you sitting around worrying and being upset? Just drink. You can't sleep? Drink some more. You go to sleep. What do you think? Can't sleep? You don't understand. We have the secret to life here. We have a higher power. We got it. And of course, you know how that ended. It was, I'm just a typical alcoholic. My drinking lasted 15 years, which I understand is just about par, right through all the phases of denial and bragging and blackouts and so on down. And for the record, I always like to share where I earned the money to drink. Some people call it a career. I would be ridiculous to refer to that as a career. I was earning drinking money, which was my career, which was drinking. My hobby was flying jets for the Marine Corps. That was my... And they were paying me, and I was trying to show up, and I would get there and do the best I could. And it was very exciting, but it wasn't as exciting as drinking. Nothing is as exciting as drinking. And so that's where I was earning my drinking money, and I traveled around, met a lot of people. It was very exciting, but the illness was progressing, and it eventually got bad enough that I did not want to fly in the plane with me. There was it was the survival instinct that was overriding all of these other things, and so I just was experiencing withdrawals and all of these things in the airplanes. So I eventually had to go to the doctors, and after 2 weeks of examining me, they came up with a diagnosis that I had a childhood fear of airplanes. And the psychiatrist, and of course you got to remember this is back in the dark ages, and we weren't too checked in the Navy on alcoholism, and of course I wasn't telling the truth. And so the diagnosis was made, and I was retrained. What do you do with a pilot who's so shaky he can't get in an airplane, he has blackouts and all that? You retrain him as an air traffic controller. And that's what I did. That's what I did during the last year of my drinking, was to bring planes in bad weather when they couldn't see the runway. And my favorite thing to do was to forget what to say and to just go, And if there's any pilots here and you're about 2.5 miles from the end of the runway and the guy on the other end on GCA is going, you know, it isn't too thrilling. The illness, eventually got me into the blackouts and the fears. If anything I remember about drinking is being afraid, terrified, shaking, just the terrible fears. And it eventually reached the culmination after malnutrition with a seizure, which led to 6 months hospitalization in the nut ward of the Bethesda Naval Hospital in the fall of 1964, which ended my 15 years of drinking. And I was locked up in there with the rest of the people, all kinds of problems, schizophrenics, neurotics, manic depressives, and a couple other drunks. And we would sit around in group therapy, and all these sick people would be talking about their problems. And once in a while, the psychiatrist would ask a neurotic, "What do you think about these drunks?" And you know what these sickos used to say? He used to say, "You guys ought to stop drinking." Jesus. That's, can you believe that they was... Next time I heard that was in here, by the way. But it was in the fall of 1964, in the nut ward of the Bethesda Naval Hospital, that an incident occurred, and if you don't mind me just digressing to make it like a commercial, I'm looking for a guy, and with this many people, maybe you're here tonight. You were a lieutenant commander in the Navy, and I was a captain in the Marine Corps, and it was a Friday, and I had finished making one of the best ashtrays in clay class that had ever been produced. And yours was second best. And everybody there agreed that mine was going to win on Monday morning when they judged them. And you came walking into my room real casual like with that big cigar, and you walked over to that my ashtray with your big fat thumb and broke it. And I figure anybody who did that's got to be a drunk. And maybe you ended up in Alcoholics Anonymous. And maybe you're coming up on the 8th and 9th step. Now, I've forgotten all about it. But just in case you want to make amends, I'll be hanging around right over here after the meeting. So I found AA. Corman came in one night and said, "All drunks fall in." So I got to the meeting under duress. I didn't want to be there. Evidently, that's how it always happens. And I got a big sponsor, and he said to me, after I got out of the nut ward, and he came over to my house, he said, "My name is Bill, this is 12-step call. I talk, you listen." I'm going to talk to you for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to go to the Manassas, Virginia, to an AA meeting. And he talked for 30 minutes, and then he said, "Get in the car." And I said, "Well, wait a minute, I haven't made my mind up yet about leave some literature. I'm going to study this, blah, 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 you know all the things you say." He said, "Get in the car." And I remember that. And the next night he came back, and he said, "Now we're going to go up to a meeting up in Falls Church, Virginia. Get in the car." And I remember that. For the longest time, I thought that was AA's first step. Get in the car, you know. And now here we are, 15 years and some months have gone by, and I haven't been drunk since that guy said, "Get in the car." And you know, I owe it all to not drinking. That's why I haven't been drunk. I figured it out. I know it sounds ridiculous, but not drinking is very crucial to this program. It really is. Yeah. Anyway, eventually there came a time to get down to the business of sobriety, and it was. It's been exciting. And as I attempt to share, you know, some of the feelings that I have, I am reminded of a speaker I heard about a year ago. And there's been a lot of ways of describing Alcoholics Anonymous. And I like his. He said, "AA is one big lost and found department." And you know, that's how I felt. And I work with a lot of new people, and I know that describes the feeling. You lost. Lost out there. Didn't even know it. Didn't know where I was going. Had no principles, had no direction, had no values. I thought each day was like being a ball in the pinball machine. All of a sudden it's your turn. Whack! And you're up. And they blast you out, you know, and some days you're up in those bumpers forever. Bam, 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 bam. And you're getting shoved around, you're coming down, and then you can see daylight down the bottom. You're home free, and some guy gets a flipper out, and you're back up to the top again. When this day about what happened, and I was lost. I was absolutely lost. I'm reminded of flying. When I first learned how to fly, we were taught instruments with the radio beam. And those of you who remember that beam, it was an audio signal that emanated from a radio station. And it came out, and you identified it with Morse code, and you figured out which leg you were on, and then you listened, and you learned how to fly the beam. And when you got off the beam, you started getting an A or an N. You could hear the Morse code that you weren't coming in on the beam. And when I think about the years before I got into Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't need beams. I was my own beam. I was just flying around out there like there wasn't any mountains. I didn't know there was any danger just going around. I thought you just fly wherever you want, even if you couldn't see. Just go on, and it was no wonder that we came up on the rocks, that we had terrible things happen. We had no guidance, we had no navigation equipment, we had no charts. We were lost, and I didn't even know it. I thought I knew what was going on. In chapter 5, they talk about old ideas availed us nothing. We had a marvelous old AA named Charlie L. up in Washington. He since has passed away, but he has some marvelous sayings, and I always like to quote him. Before I get to the serious one, I always like to quote the one he said to a guy who came into the AA meeting, a new guy, and he said to Charlie, "Hey, you know that clock down there says 8:15, that one over there says 8:30. Charlie looked at him and he said, "If they both said the same time, we wouldn't need but one clock." Charlie also said the road to alcoholism is paved with booze, and I thought that was appropriate. But the thing that I remember the most was he said, "You know, it isn't the things that we don't know that hurt us. It's knowing things that just ain't so." And that's what I had. I had a lot of information that was wrong. Flat wrong. I didn't even know I was lost. I didn't even know that there were charts. I didn't know that there was a North Pole that I could aim at that would send me a signal. I didn't know there was a spiritual beam that could be flown. I didn't know that until I got into AA and you taught me about these steps. And you taught me if I got rid of these character defects, I could start hearing that still small voice inside of me. And I could start hearing that signal. And I could trust that signal just like I could trust a radio beam. And the weather's bad and there's mountains all around, and that beam can lead you down if you have faith in it and if you know what you're doing. And I think we come into AA and we find out what we're doing. And we have faith that we're going to find this direction, and we're going to find this power, and we're going to find this beam, and it's going to take us to the places that those went before us. And I want to go where they went and where they are. It is a program of attraction. I look at somebody who is a grown-up, and I want to be like that. And there's people in every group, your group, that you want to be like. And it's good news to find out there is directions, there is a plan, and it works for everybody, and it involves God. That's the plan. To me, that's what the joy of living is. It's God. If I had to describe what it felt like, thanks. If I had to describe what my life was and what it felt like coming into AA, I would call it taking a stand. I'm reminded of the wagon trains going out west, that when the danger got close, according to the television programs that I see, they pulled the wagons in a circle and took a stand. And you know, when you're all alone, it's hard to pull things into a circle. When it's just me against the world, it's hard to cover your rear end. You got to have more than one to pull things in a circle. And so it is in the AA group. And I look at us, all of us runners, all of us who've been going down just terrorized by life have finally gotten together and formed a circle and taken a stand. And we sit there and we say, my problem is fear. And we don't run away from it. We go right around that table, right around that circle, and we say, this is what we do about fear. This is how we get the power to go deal with your fear. And we get that collective advice, and the whole group stands. And after we do it, we realize how obvious it was all along, that it really wasn't a closely guarded military secret, that it had been sitting there absolutely visible, absolutely obvious all along. And perhaps if we had to describe what a grown-up is, it's a person who can see the obvious, who can see exactly what's there and not see what isn't there, and not have wrong information. I know the movies about the Invisible Man. Did you ever see an Invisible Man movie? And you as the audience always know where the Invisible Man is. You see the carpet being depressed, and you see the grass moving when the Invisible Man moves through. And we're the only ones who seem to be able to follow him, because we can see what's obvious right in front of us. We can see the footprints, we can see certain things moving, and yet he's invisible, and nobody in the movie can see him. And so it is with a higher power. It is so obvious that it's hard to see. It has been there all my life. My parents' love was there all my life. I just never could see it. It was so obvious, I couldn't believe it. And I've come in here to AA, and I realize, I think, why I'm able to see the obvious. As a self-centered alcoholic, I was like a Hollywood director who had those zoom lenses on those motion picture cameras, and those lenses can go all the way down until there's just an eyeball on the screen, or they can back up until you have a wide angle, such as the picture that was taken here tonight, and you can see the whole room. And as an alcoholic, my lens was locked in the close-up position, and I only saw the world from real close. Somebody would have a revolution in South America, and it would ruin my day. Somebody would discover another planet in the solar system, it would ruin my day. I said, what did you discover that today for? I got enough to worry about. And I've been able to come in here and get a new identity. I became part of a group. And then I became part of the Washington area intergroup. And then I became part of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when they show us this picture tonight, each one of us will just be a dot. A little teeny dot. We won't even be able to see exactly who is where. But it won't matter. Because what we are is part of this whole group. As an individual, I'm just a dot here. But as a part of this whole group, I have access to the power of this group. And whatever gave us this group has infinite power. Of myself, I am nothing. But with you and with the fellowship, we have the power to overcome every problem that may beset us. As it says in the big book, may you find him now. Thank you very much.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.